steroids. More steroids as it came back. Tired dude. Okay, so I'm going to do part 1 of my first son, Caiden, eczema story. This is going to be part 1 of 3. I'm going to have 3 different parts to the story. So I'm going to start off by giving a little bit of a background. I had Caiden when I was, how old was I? I think 26. I had just turned 26 years old when I had him. And he was just the sweetest little baby. He also was a difficult baby. I was a new mom. I didn't understand the way he was delivered. He had horrible torticollis, so he was pretty colicky and screamy, and it took us a while to figure out that that was what his problem was. So he also had some pretty severe plagiocephaly, and that is where part of your skull gets kind of smushed from laying on one side because he could not turn his neck fully to one side. Other than that, once we got that figured out, he did such a great job, and right when we thought we had solved that, his eczema started. It was an interesting way to start because, you know, most babies, they get baby acne. They're a little scratchy, a little red, a little rashy, and his baby acne, I realized now looking back, he never really grew out of it. It kind of just lingered. He didn't have super dry skin. He had a little bit of seborrheic dermatitis on his scalp, a little bit on his eyebrows, perhaps, not too much, and just like any, cradle cap baby. But when one day, he started getting itchy, and he took his nails, you don't always get to, they grow so fast and they have the angles. He scraped himself on the cheek. And at first it was fine. I thought, oh, it's just like one of his other scratches. It'll be fine. And I don't even think I put anything on it. I thought, oh, it'll just heal over. And I started to notice that the wound was getting bigger, and he kept itching at it. So I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just healing, so it's really itchy. So I decided to put a huge, big square Band-Aid over his face just so that he couldn't itch it. It could heal. At this point, I think I put some Neosporin on it which is kind of a no-no, even, according to dermatologists, anyone you ask with eczema, Neosporin is not the best option. But that's what I knew at the time, so I put that on his skin. And we took him into his pediatrician, and they were like, oh, this is eczema. And I was like, what? I have a sister with eczema. She has super, scaly, dry. This is oozing. I'm noticing there's yellow stuff coming out. That's not eczema. It's just an infected scratch, right? But however, we went to the pediatrician who referred us to a dermatologist. And so we went and talked to the dermatologist pretty quickly back in the day. 2015, you could get appointments faster than you can now. So we went to the dermatologist, and they're like, oh yeah, eczema. I'm like, okay. So they gave us some steroid cream, which, as being somewhat of a crunchy mom at that point, I was a little bit nervous about putting steroids on, especially when they kind of went over the side effects and things in the informational packet. I was like, I don't know about this. But I think I got to a point of desperation where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to trust it. I'm going to put some steroids on there. And we followed what they said. I think I waited a little and then put it on. And I think it was, I want to say it was like a lotion base for the first one. I'll look back in my records and see the names of the particular types of steroids that we used for him. And so we put just a little. I was very light-handed. I put a little on his cheek. We did it a couple times for 3 days. Boom, gone. I was like, oh, well, that was easy. Problem solved. And if any of you know with eczema, it just doesn't work like that. So a couple days go by and it starts happening again. Same spot. I'm like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Maybe we keep putting it back on. But then all of a sudden, boom, the other cheek starts developing the same type of infected eczema. Just off the bat, already oozing. And we had really weepy eczema, as I will talk about in some of my other videos, and weepy eczema, it will just ooze clear, it will ooze yellow, it can be infected, it cannot be infected, but he had very weepy eczema, so it was always just tons of pus coming out, poor guy. And at this point, he started getting itchier. And so I thought, okay, well, the steroids are not helping, it's making it worse. But I was so desperate after a couple weeks of this, I was like, you know what? Let's just put it on. Let's see what happens. If it made it go away once, it'll make it go away again. So we put it on both sides of the cheeks. And this time it didn't fully help it heal. But all of a sudden, he's breaking out all over. It's starting to spread down. It's on his feet very badly. It starts getting in his ankles, kind of around the front part of his foot, up onto the ankles. And then it's just spreading up all over the place. And at this point, it's getting pretty severe. He is itching uncontrollably, screaming at night, waking up multiple times, probably, I want to say every 2 to 3 hours, maybe less some nights. We'd come in, the sheets would be covered in blood. And it's hard to talk about. And there's nothing you could do to stop him from itching. You would get his hands bundled, like I talked about in my welcome video. I used to keep him in a scarf bundle. I would take scarves, put his hand in big socks, put his arms crossed or down at his side, and I would be lying next to him so he wouldn't roll over and then have issues, because he was 6-7 months at this point and rolling. And I would just stay up all night staring, watching him, and then I'd nod off. And I'd look, and he would have gotten one arm out, and it's bleeding again. Or he would, when I really got good at binding his hands, he would take his foot and his toenails, and he would kick off. First I didn't put socks on him, and then he would just take his toenails, and he would scratch his other foot or his thigh, and then that would be bleeding, because he just had to itch. And so then we would do socks, and then he would figure out how to wiggle out of his socks. And then it's like, how do we keep the feet safe? How do we put his pants lower? I mean, it was very tricky to figure all of that out. So it's just escalating at this point. The doctors don't really know what to tell us. They're saying he needs sleep. I'm like, well, obviously I need sleep too. And as an eczema parent, I'm sure you understand that the sleep is like golden. Like you're not going to function well without the sleep, but how are you going to get sleep if you got to make sure your kid's not itching themselves into oblivion? And no one can really give you an answer on that. No one gives advice or guidance on that, at least that I experienced. So at least with medical people. So what they did prescribe was, it was kind of similar to Benadryl, which I tried regular Benadryl, and then I tried kind of this like stronger Benadryl that was a prescription. Both didn't work. For him, it just made him more awake. To me, it didn't help the itching, didn't quell the itch. It didn't help him sleep. In fact, yeah, I lost sleep during the times we used that. And I kept trying that for a while, and I thought, okay, this is not working. I was kind of giving up on the steroids at that point too, because I felt like, you know, this isn't helping. This isn't getting any better. I had, at the time, to be clear, this was my first marriage. And we had, I'm not going to badmouth anybody, but we had a lot of disagreements with steroid use, where I was a little more researching it all the time and a little more wary. He was, I think, just like, let's put it on. I think it eventually, I don't know if I can speak for him, he got to the point where he kind of was like, okay, they're just going to give us another steroid. So he was kind of getting a little frustrated, I think, at that time too, with what we needed to do. But we didn't use a ton of steroids. We tried them, and I personally felt like it was not really helping the situation. And I kept asking, could this be an allergy? I have a family history of allergies. And it's like, no, it's probably not any allergies. It's fine. I'm like, okay, well, helpful. And it took a little bit of time, but we finally got a referral to the allergist. However, the allergist, there's only one in our area, so it took a really long time for them to get us in. I think it was a 6-month to a 1-year wait. I was on a waiting list for that, and that was a little bit stressful. And they didn't think it was allergies. They're like, oh yeah, eczema, it's not a thing. So during this time, between the allergist appointment and now, he gets sick, and I'm thinking it was roseola. No one could really tell us. But he got a fever, and he got this horrible, weird rash. It almost looked a little like discoid eczema, and then he also had bumps. So he had almost like tons of different types of eczema, and possibly viral rashes that just lingered. Never going to be sure on that. We never got his skin biopsied, so we'll never really know. It might not have even told us anything anyway, but so he had some weird looking eczema that when I would bring him in, nobody was able to tell me what it was later on, because it just kind of lingered there. So in between that time, he gets a new, like, his eczema is just getting worse. It's spreading. He's miserable. This is when things get bad, because I notice there's certain foods he's throwing up with that I'm eliminating. There's certain foods that cause eczema worse and redness around his mouth. And I'm thinking, okay, this has to be food allergy. I know it has to be. And I start kind of eliminating some things from his diet, trying to help. I was breastfeeding, so I did eliminate dairy. I eliminated, I think, soy. I did the usual. I think I was still doing gluten at that point. There wasn't celiacs, like, in, the people talking about it more hadn't totally happened. It was kind of just starting during that time. So people talking about that and that information spreading. So I just stopped the dairy and the soy, and I know no improvement for me. So I noticed, and it was hard for me to find things to eat. So little did I know with my second, it would be way harder. But ignorance is bliss at that moment. So anyways, I'm going to stop it there. That'll be my first part. The next part of the story, I'm going to talk about the allergy appointment. What happened during that time? What did we find out? Where does the story go from there? Does his eczema get better? Do we find his triggers? I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of my first part of my firstborn story. It's a little foggy. I'm trying to remember all the details, and I think I got kind of the big initial gist of it. It's really hard to capture, unless you are in this, no one's going to understand that level of how hard it is. How hard it is to watch your kid suffer, and you're just helpless. There's nothing you can do. You try all the things. At that point, I guess I could add, like, we had tried we're trying multiple lotions. We're doing natural lotions. We're doing Aveeno. We're doing CeraVe. We're doing Cetaphil. We're doing, Vaseline, Aquifer. I mean, we're doing all of the things. And I'll start with that too in the next video. We'll talk about his allergy appointment. I'll talk about all of the different lotions and potions, some of the brands that we tried, and his reactions to them. And kind of what I learned with that, because it kind of gets crazy after the allergy appointment. So hang in there, and I will try to update with his next story, maybe after this one posts, so the day after. So stay tuned. Okay.